Dershowitz is a Democrat. He makes no bones about that.
That's right.
He voted for Obama twice. He is a friend of Obama's. He's visited him in the White House on numerous occasions. He knows all the movers and shakers within the Democratic Party. But he's written a book, and the title of it, good grief. Do you remember the title? It's
I don't, but you know what? Alan Dershowitz is also the Harvard law professor who is that rare liberal who sees things from both sides and calls things as he sees them, and not just from his side of the fence.
That's exactly right. And the name of the book is The Case Against the Iran Nuclear Treaty.
Yes,
and
that's right.
And you can find it on Amazon.com. I would urge you to do that. It costs about $10 to download it. You can have it immediately on your Kindle or on your Kindle app. And he does not believe that this new nuclear treaty with Iran is a good thing.
No, absolutely not. We could not post the interviews. They were just too long. But what I did find was an editorial he wrote on July the 16th for the Boston Globe, where he simply does not mince words about this treaty. He said, how do we get ourselves into the situation where there are no good options? He said, we did so by beginning the negotiations with three important concessions. First, we took the military option off the table by publicly declaring that we were not militarily capable of permanently ending Iran's nuclear weapons program. Second, we took the current tough sanction regimen off the table by acknowledging that if we did not accept a deal, many of our most important partners would begin to reduce or even eliminate sanctions. Third, and most important, we took off the table the option of rejecting the deal by publicly acknowledging that if we do so, we will be worse off than if we accept even a reasonable deal. Yes, the president said he would not accept a bad deal, but by repeatedly watering down the definition of a bad deal and by repeatedly stating that the alternative to a deal would be disastrous, he led the Iranians to conclude we needed the deal more than they did. These three concessions left our negotiators with little leverage and provided their Iranian counterparts with every incentive to demand more compromises from us. The result is that we pinned ourselves into a corner. As Danielle Piletka of the American Enterprise Institute put it, the deal itself became more important than what was in it. President Obama seems to have confirmed that assessment when he said, put simply, no deal means a greater chance of more war in the Middle East. The reality is that there were always alternatives. Though they became less realistic as the negotiations progressed, we could have stuck to the original red lines, non-negotiable demands from the beginning. These included on-the-spot inspections of all facilities rather than the nearly month-long notice that will allow the Iranians to hide what they are doing, shutting down all facilities specifically designed for nuclear weapon production, maintaining the embargo on missiles and other sophisticated weapons rather than allowing it to gradually be lifted, and most crucially, a written assurance that the international community will never allow Iran to develop a nuclear arsenal. The current assortment of intermediate and varying timelines agreed to will allow Iranians to believe and proclaim they will soon be free of any constraints on their nuclear adventurism. Instead, we caved early and often because the Iranians knew we desperately need a deal to implement President Obama's world vision to enhance his legacy. This approach to the deal, surrendering leverage from the outset, violated the most basic principles of Negotiation 101. We were playing checkers against the people who invented chess, and their Ayatollah checkmated our president.
That's right.
Just goes on. It just goes on.
Here's the thing. In this book, he has an appendix with the deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's all there. And it's all annotated with his notes about the things that are bad about the deal. There are things that are just coming out about the deal that most people were not aware of. For instance, Americans and Canadians are not allowed to be on the inspection teams because we don't have a diplomatic relationship with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the whole point of making a deal, was so that we could enter into a diplomatic relationship, but evidently that was not the case. they basically made no concessions whatsoever. They still have their ICBMs, their intercontinental ballistic missiles. They still have their centrifuges going. They still are moving toward making a bomb. The inspection process, although President Obama continues to say that we can quickly find out if they're cheating, we can't, because
no, absolutely not.
A, we're locked out, and
Right.
B, it takes a month or two after notification that we're coming in for an inspection.
Right.
That is, I don't see how this is a good deal in any way for anyone but Iran.
That's right, and unfortunately, the only option we have at this point to forestall this disaster in the making is that we can hope that Congress will deny it passage.
Well, and one of the things Dershowitz says is that Congress needs to pass some kind of bill that clearly states this simply: under no circumstances will we allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. And we hereby give permission to any president, present or future, to be able to stop that if it were to come up. For Obama to say that we don't have the military capability to stop them from doing this is a horrific admission.
Well, it's treason. As far as I'm concerned, that's giving succor and aid to the enemy.
Well, and if you look at what he's done to our military in the 6.5 years that he's been president, he's basically gutted our military.
Of course he has.
So there could be a good reason why he thinks we don't have that capacity. So it's shameful at the very least.
Absolutely.
And Dershowitz is not a fan.
No.
Nor should he be, nor should anyone be.
That's right.
This is a disaster in the making. This deal is going to come back and bite us in dozens of different ways.
That's right.
And I don't see Israel accepting this deal in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Nor should they.
That's right. That's right. Now, we've just got a few minutes before we're going to go to break. So let's talk about the former premier of the Czech Republic.
Wow. We saw a quote attributed to him this week that is shocking and shamefully accurate. That is a shocking and shamefully accurate indictment of the American voter. Václav Klaus said this: "The danger to America is not Barack Obama, but a citizenry capable of trusting a man like him with the presidency. It will be far easier to limit and undo the follies of an Obama presidency than to restore the necessary common sense and good judgment to a depraved electorate willing to have such a man for their president. The problem is much deeper and far more serious than Mr. Obama, who is a mere symptom of what ails America. Blaming the Prince of Fools should not blind anyone to the vast confederacy of fools who made him their prince. The Republic can survive a Barack Obama, who is, after all, merely a fool. It is less likely to survive a multitude of fools such as those who made them their president."
Wow, and that is taking the Americans to the woodshed.
Absolutely.
Now, I find this interesting because Barack Obama lives in this world where just last week he said that 99% of the world agrees with him on the Iran deal.
I don't think Mr. Klaus is one of those 99.
I don't, and Alan Dershowitz certainly isn't.
No. No.
So there are lots of people that don't agree, but I think that Mr. Klaus has hit the nail on the head, because he's basically saying, America, you need to wake up. You need to be aware of who you're appointing as your leader.
But he's absolutely right. I mean, Mr. Obama was paraded before us as a shiny object with no substance, no background, no vetting, and no one questioned that. The few who did were labeled racists by the media at large and marginalized. And we should be ashamed of ourselves
Yes.
A multitude of fools. We need to let that ring in our ears for a little while.
Well, I've been accused of being a racist because I disagreed with Barack Obama.
Yes.
And that stunned me because race has nothing to do with it, and particularly with me. I could care less what his race is. I couldn't care less what his race is.
Right.
And in fact, I'm not listening to that criticism anymore. I let that criticism silence me in a lot of ways in the past, but I cannot do that anymore.
No.
What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong.
That's right.
And I'm going to have to stand up for what I believe is right and what I believe is wrong. And this Iran deal is just one of many things where Barack Obama has been wrong. Well, we're going to have to take a break. It's about that time, so we're going to take our break now. And when we come back, we're going to have Charles Key with us. Charles was with us last week briefly. Hopefully he'll be with us all night tonight, and we're really looking forward to it. You don't want to miss it. You're listening to the Deloach Approach right here on WNLA.
How many of you know the 16 words in President Bush's State of the Union address that led us to war? How many know my wife's name? Now, how can you know one and not the other? When did the question move from why are we going to war to who is this man's wife? I asked the first question, but somebody else asked the second, and it worked. Because none of us know the truth. The offense that was committed was not committed against me. It was not committed against my wife. It was committed against you. All of you. So if that makes you angry or feel misrepresented, do something about it. When Benjamin Franklin left Independence Hall just after the second drafting, he was approached by a woman on the street. The woman said, "Mr. Franklin, what manner of government have you bequeathed us?" And Franklin said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it. The responsibility of a country is not in the hands of a privileged few. We are strong and we are free from tyranny as long as each one of us remembers his or her duty as a citizen. Whether it's to report a pothole at the top of your street or lies in a State of the Union address, speak out. Ask those questions. Demand that truth. Democracy is not a free ride, man. I'm here to tell you. But this is where we live. And if we do our job, this is where our children will live. God bless you.
Hey there, I'm Big Tiny. I'm the host of Big Tiny's Oldies and More, where we play music from the 50s to today's favorites. So check us out Monday through Friday and see what we're playing. Right here on Spreaker.
I'm John DeMay, and I approve this message.
Since the beginning of the 21st century, the American people have had their freedoms and liberties slowly taken away from them. Americans can no longer speak freely in public, nor can they protest peacefully without fear of arrest or bodily harm done to them by the very people they elected into office. It's time to elect a person that will fight for the Constitution and not against it. That person is John DeMay Jr. As president, John DeMay will restore America's freedoms and liberties to the American people. He will nullify any executive order, any law that is unconstitutional, and bring power back to the states. This presidential election, vote for John DeMay Jr. A vote for DeMay is a vote for our Constitution. John DeMay Jr., restoring the Constitution to the American people. Paid for by the campaign to elect John DeMay Jr. for President 2016.